In this video, we're going to discuss and distinguish bilateral and unilateral contracts. So let's start with a bilateral contract. In a bilateral contract, the offeror is going to make a promise, and she's going to get a promise in return from the offeree. So let's say we have Patty and David outside of Patty's house, and Patty makes a promise. She promises David that she'll pay him $100. But in return for her promise, she wants David to make a promise. So David promises in return that he'll paint Patty's fence. Good job, Patty and David. You now have a bilateral contract. David's promised to paint a fence, and Patty's promised to pay money. So in our bilateral contract, we have parties making promises to each other. But let's say instead of two promises, we only have one promise. Patty says, if you paint the fence, I promise to pay you $100. So at this point, Patty's made a promise to pay. But David has promised nothing. And actually, Patty doesn't even want a promise from David. David accepts the offer by performing, by painting the fence. He's entitled to his money once he performs. Rewards or contests are usually unilateral contracts. For example, let's say Patty puts up a sign saying, "Lost dog, $500 reward," and David sees the sign. Now there's only one promise here. Patty's promised $500 to whoever can find her dog. So let's say David performs. He finds the dog. Now Patty has to keep her promise and pay the reward. So in a bilateral contract, there'll be at least two promises. The parties are making promises to each other. So one party will say, I promise to pay you $100. The other party promises to paint the fence. Bilateral contract. In a unilateral contract, though, the offerer is not looking for a promise in return. Performance is acceptance of the offer. If you'd like to discuss bilateral and unilateral contracts, feel free to submit your comments below and to visit me on my website and blog.